pandemic was that Jordan, in its initial form, mainly as a sovereign political entity under the rule of the Hashemite family, would have a limited lifespan. In retrospect, despite the high volatility of both the political and the socioeconomic situation, the loss of the West Bank, the Arab Jerusalem, the June 67 war, the Black September, the deportation of 300,000 Jordanian workers from Kuwait and Saudi Arabia in 1990 after the Second Gulf War, the Arab Spring events, and recently the jump in oil and crude prices as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Jordanian economy not only survived, but it succeeded in providing a better standard of living, as well as political stability to its citizens compared to most of the non-oil other Arab countries. The aim of this short, very short, I hope, paper is twofold. First, to examine Jordan's main socioeconomic pillars that enable the survival of the kingdom thus far, and second, to examine if these pillars are sufficient to preserve the stability of the Jordanian economy in the longer run as well. So, in short, Jordan, three major, as I see, socioeconomic pillars are the demographic rent, the unique combination of rentier state and rentier economy, and the peace treaty with Israel, which I say one sentence because we have the wonderful lecture of Yitzhak. What is demographic rent? The common perception in the academic literature is that the most lucrative rent in the Arab region is fossil rent driven from export of oil and gas. Numerous academic and non-academic works have explained the political stability of the Arabian Gulf countries due to their huge oil and gas rental revenues. However, it appears that in the case of the Arab region, fossil rental revenue, even in considerable amount, are not enough to preserve political stability. The most prominent examples that illustrate this point are Libya and Iraq. In Libya, Gaddafi failed to preserve his regime despite his huge rental income. And moreover, following the collapse of his regime, the country deteriorated into a prolonged civil war more than a decade, right? The second example, Iraq, has not succeeded in establishing a stable central regime from the end of Saddam Hussein's rule in 2003, almost 2 decades ago. On the other hand, although the regime of both Egypt and Tunisia, which are not, of course, rentier states, collapsed due to the Arab Spring events, and it even took several years until new governments were established. In the interim period, not only did civil war not break out, but all of the major states' institutions and public services, first and foremost the central bank, the police, the education, the health services, the municipality regime and so on, continue to function. The answer to this paradox lies in what might be called demographic rent. While Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon are extremely heterogeneous with respect to religion, ethnicity, or both, and Libya is particularly tribal and regionally heterogeneous, Egypt and Tunisia are multiple ethno-religious homogeneous. In this respect, Jordan is much more like than the later. Moreover, from the early days of Jordan, Kings Abdallah include the ethnic and religious minorities in all aspects of the Emirates' life. I don't have much to say about it. All the day we talk about this kind of political institution. But the most important, I think, is the unique combination between rentier states and rentier economy, which is not the same things. While all of the other Arab countries, almost all of them, are either rentier states, namely based on oil and gas revenue, like the GCC countries, Iraq, Libya, Algeria, or rentier economy mainly based on workers' remittances and tourism, like Egypt, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Morocco, Jordan simultaneously benefit from three kinds of rents: large-scale governmental rental revenues in the form of foreign aid, we'll see later, workers' remittances, and tourism receipts, and the economic dividend that we saw here in the Tzchak lecture from the peace treaty with Israel. Here, that you have what we talked in the morning, so I did it in percentage, so you can see it, okay? Here we can see the foreign grants and the percentage of the public sector revenues. Looks, that's the beginning in the 60s. Again, here, following the Khartoum Arab Summit. Again, following the Baghdad Arab Summit. And so on and so on. And here is the deteriorator. It's like this is what you're talking about the last decade. Okay? So Jordan is a rentier state, as in some points almost half of the public sector revenues based on grant, but it's also a rentier economy. So the workers' remittances, back in the 50s, the Arab oil countries were looking for educated Arab workforce for their rapidly expanded public sector services. The Jordanian educated labor soldiers matched the labor shortage of the Arab oil countries in what was a win-win situation. Since the mid-70s, the workers' remittances constitute a substantial percentage of Jordan's total foreign exchange earnings and compensate for the huge balance of trade deficit. So we will start here prior to the oil boom, which was about $25 million per year. Then the oil boom of 1973, it was 1.3 billion in the early 80s after the second oil shock. Of course, here's decline, this is the refusal of King Hussein to support the anti-Iraqi coalition, and then it started to increase until the onset of the coronavirus. Okay? So here, in 2019, it was $4.4 billion, which is a lot of money. It's almost 50% of the export, if we see it. Okay? So to the above mentioned three rents, one should add that Jordan had also enjoyed, I call it luck, a little bit luck. What I mean is that since the 70s, each time that the Jordanian economy was in a severe recession, an external event, not connected directly to the kingdom, led to its economic recovery. And we can see it. Look what's happened after the Black September. I think this one, we talk about it later, Asher. Yesterday, sorry. Here, it's after the Black September, and again, the wars here, 89. Okay, but look what's happened here. 2 years later, the oil boom. Again, here, it's not took so many years, and the Oslo Accord, and after that, the peace treaty with Israel, and so on and so on. After the Arab Spring, 3 years later, the sharp decline in oil prices. Always something has happened. I think the king is playing cards, something like that. I don't know how, but it's always there. 2003, after the US invasion of Iraq, the US increased the support on Jordan. So it's always something happened. But not anymore. However, the coronavirus pandemic severely damaged the Jordanian economy, which in contrast to Egypt and Morocco was already in prolonged recession since 2009. Overall, in 2020, the Jordanian economy contracted by 1.6%, namely almost 4% per capita, in per capita terms. This recession resulted in several factors. The most prominent are the following. The dramatic decrease, of course, of the tourism receipt. Just a minute. Here. Okay, look what this is. The last year period, the onset of the coronavirus, it was almost 8 billion, and then it's declined. Look, that's 2020. less than 2 billion. It's only in the first quarter. After that, it's totally diminishing. Okay. The second is the decline of workers' remittances, more than 8%, from 4.4 billion to something like 3.8, which is huge decrease. The failure of export of something like 5%, and the sharp increase of the budgetary deficit. Stacey talked about it, so I don't have to elaborate. The disruption of the normal activity in many sectors led to a sharp rise in unemployment that we talk about. According to the official figures, in the fourth quarter of 2020, the unemployment rate of the Jordanian citizen was about 24.8, 25%. Okay, as compared to 19% prior to the onset of the coronavirus. Among those under the age of 25, the unemployment jumped to about 50%. I really don't. This extremely high unemployment rate among the young resulted in three main factors. The most prominent is that in contrast to those 40 years and above, only a small percentage of the young are employed by the public sector. Even today, 40% of the Jordanian workforce is employed by the government. Even today, it was more than 50% in the 80s. So Jordan is a ranger state, some kind of ranger labor market. This is the first reason. The second factor is that naturally, only a small percentage of them are self-employed. And finally, the impossible competition with the cheap Jordanian and non-Jordanian workforce, mainly the foreign workers and the Arab Spring refugees, both together, the foreign workers and the Arab Spring refugees, which are employed in the Jordanian market, are something like 1.5 million. Okay? As compared to 1.8 million Jordanians, which is almost 50% of the workforce, the foreign workers and the Arab refugees. It's amazing. Okay? So the reason that the Jordanian economy has shrunk by only 1.6%, which is very low in comparison to the other Arab countries, with the exception of Egypt, which GDP did not decline so rapidly in 2 years ago, is because the sharp rise of the fiscal deficit from 3.3% to more than 7% in 2020, including the foreign grants. This led to a sharp rise, of course, of debt to GDP ratio to 107%, something like that. However, despite the rebounds in the Jordanian economy performance in 2021, last year, the growth rate remained very low, estimated at about 2% only. In per capita terms, it is minus again, another year of minus. Okay? The slow recovery of the Jordanian economy came into effect in the labor market. By the first quarter of 2022, that's the latest data that we have, the unemployment rate remained as it was. There is no decline. There is no decline in unemployment. It's amazing. Among the young, about half are not working. Not because they don't want. They cannot compete with foreign workers. And the refugees, which is some kind of foreign workers. And now the Russian invasion of Ukraine constitutes another blow to the Jordanian economy due to the sharp rise in the price of the two basic commodities, oil and cereals.
Oil and?
Cereals, wheat and everything.
Cereals.
Yeah. The current projection is that the Jordanian economy will expand by only 2.4 or 2.3% this year. Namely, another year, also 2022, another year of zero growth. In historical perspective, since 2010, here, that's what you talk about. That's the onset of the Arab Spring. Look, that's in constant prices. In PPP perhaps, that's purchasing power, it's declining. The standard of living of the Jordanian citizens is declining for 12 years. It's a long time. So, historical perspective, since the onset of the Arabs, Jordan GDP per capita is constantly declining. This means that the purchasing power of the Jordanian citizens is markedly decline. That's why we have not had any example of non-oil Arab country that had succeeded in preserving its political stability over a long period of time in a situation of stagflation, namely economic recession on the one hand, and huge unemployment and low increase of the economy on the other hand. Will Jordan will be the first? At present, it is hard to believe. On the other hand, throughout its history, Jordan has proven its outstanding abundance, and each time that it seems that it's going to collapse, and it's collapsed soon and so on and so on, it rose like a phoenix and continued to exist in its initial form, namely as a sovereign political state under the rule of the Hashemite. What will be? I really don't know, but I believe in the Hashemites. Thank you very much.